So we begin. Your party is coming down the long road. It's warm outside. The breeze is chilling enough just to keep you comfortable. And you see an old man traveling down the road. He's got gray hair and a small hunch on his back and a walking stick in his hand. And as he's walking, he's singing.
Does the walking stick look valuable?
It has a carved, ornate head like a bald eagle.
I fire my bow at him.
Okay. Roll an attack.
Okay. Crit success.
Okay. Well, you hit him because he's an old man on the road doing nothing.
I take his staff, his walking stick. I take it.
How much damage? It doesn't matter. He's very dead. Okay. It's just a walking staff. You have an ornately carved, fancy walking staff.
Perfect. How much is it worth?
8 gold.
Okay, I put it in my bag of holding and keep on going. What else?
Your D&D character is a
Sociopath. Okay, so, disclaimer. This is a new series we're starting, and it is working off of the DSM-V, which is
For diagnosing mental health disorders. And we're playing out of the player's handbook with different classes and what we know.
Dungeons and Dragons. Don't use this to diagnose your friends. They're playing a character, just as you are, or playing many as the dungeon master. So don't diagnose your friends. And
neither of us is licensed, so we can't be diagnosing people. This is not counseling. This is fun internet showdom.
And it's just what we've noticed.
So don't hold any of this against us.
Yep. Or hold it really, really close.
To your heart, where it belongs.
No, to my body. We'll be talking about bards in a few weeks.
Yep. That'll be a fun episode. Okay, so after extensive research.
Right. Which you have to do anyways because you're in school.
Right. I think that I found 2 disorders that fit just about any D&D character.
Ooh, wow. Broad range. Let's dive into that. What's number 1?
Okay, so number 1, I think, would be antisocial personality disorder. I'll read out some of the criteria.
Okay, and I'll tell you what I have seen players do or have done myself in a D&D game.
Yep.
Ready.
Okay, ready? So, in order to meet the criteria for a diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder, the individual must be doing 3 or more of the following beyond the age of 15, along with a pervasive pattern of disregard for and violation of rights of others. Okay.
1.
Which may sound really extreme, but I think that fits. Number 1, failure to conform to social norms with respect to lawful behaviors as indicated by repeatedly performing acts that are grounds for arrest.
Basically, every D&D player ever.
The whole fact that you're playing a character that doesn't have like an occupation or a normal family or, doesn't do what everybody else is doing.
Why can't we just play, like barkeeps and wine cellars and we just run an inn every week?
And it's a drinking game.
Yeah. Ooh.
Patent that.
Patented. Done. Next.
2, deceitfulness as indicated by repeated lying, uses of aliases, or conning others for personal profit or pleasure.
I use disguised self and I rob the bard.
Done.
Or the minstrel, or the barkeep, or the noble, or the shop owner. Next.
Number 3, impulsivity or failure to plan ahead.
Let's just go scout and we'll see and roll for initiative.
4, irritability and aggressiveness as indicated by repeated physical fights or assaults. Do we even need to comment on that one?
I don't think so. Next.
5, reckless disregard for safety of self or others.
Well, if you can bring people back from the dead, that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Next.
6, consistent irresponsibility as indicated by repeated failure to sustain consistent work behavior or honor financial obligations.
Yep.
Yup. 7. Lack of remorse is indicated by being indifferent to or rationalizing having hurt, mistreated, or stolen from others.
I cast Fireball. The room is 5 feet by 10 feet. Did I ask how big the room was? I said I cast Fireball.
I loot the bodies.
I
steal from the single mother.
I mutilate the bodies. I'm going to take the skull of this guy I just killed so I can cast Speak to Undead later. Next.
Or make it into a cup for chai. I've had that happen before. Okay, so that is the list from which we only need 3 in order to meet criteria. By my calculations, we met all 7.
7.
Okay, so number B, the individual has to be at least 18 years or older. So that fits for most D&D
most
characters.
D&D. Rarely you get the young kid that, or recently orphaned,
Yeah.
avenging his father type thing.
In which case there would be a different diagnosis. Maybe we'll dive into your young D&D character is later on. Okay, so
Less
C.
fun.
So we did A was the list, and then B is the individual is 18. C is there's an evidence of conduct disorder with an onset before 15 years of age, which is what we were just talking about.
Right. I had a troublesome youth. I was caught dealing drugs out of my parents' estate, and they put me into the monk academy to try to beat some sense into me. And now I rob merchants at sea because I'm a pirate.
That fits.
Great.
D, the occurrence of antisocial behavior is not exclusively during the course of a schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. This is important because we need to recognize that some of our classes may have diagnoses that would outrule the antisocial and be a better fit for what we're seeing in their behavior. So for right now, in the general D&D character, it seems as if every aspect of this diagnosis would fit. Now, here's the fun thing, Peter. I'm going to read out a few things that I think are really interesting about this disorder that I hope this series can add some spice to our D&D games.
I'm ready.
Okay. These are a few of the characteristics of this diagnosis. These individuals may blame the victims for being foolish, helpless, or deserving their fate. Now, imagine you're creating a character knowing full well this character is going to be antisocial. Now you know how to treat all of the victims that you encounter.
In fact, if you want to be really fun, you can play as a lawful evil cleric who made up a fake god and uses the excuse of a fake god as to kill whoever they want in this way.
Which would go really well with the next part of they may minimize the harmful consequences of their actions, or they may simply indicate complete indifference. They generally fail to compensate or make amends for their behavior. They may believe that everyone is out to help number one, and that one should stop at nothing to avoid being pushed around.
Looking at you, Beauregard.
So there's a whole bunch of other things. One thing that I found really interesting that I think goes a little bit further to prove the point that your D&D character may be antisocial is this following sentence in the prevalence section of the DSM. The highest prevalence of antisocial personality disorder, greater than 70%, is amongst most severe samples of males with alcohol use disorder and from substance abuse clinics. So there's a bit of a correlation between antisocial behavior and drinking problems.
So next time, DM, that you have a player who's can't meet up for a few months, just throw them into a rehab. And then when they get out, they'll have a new list of issues to deal with. It's perfect. Next.
So that's the antisocial. I think we made a case for that being that. But I want to have a backup. And I think there's another good backup.
Yeah. If you want to be like a lawful good paladin who's not most of the things we mentioned, check this out.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
Okay, so this is a repetitive and persistent pattern of behavior in which the basic rights of others or major age-appropriate societal norms or rules are violated. We need to have at least 3 of the following 15 criteria in the past 12 months.
So you can have conduct disorder.
My guess is that most of this would come out in a single session. Okay, I'm going to read through all of them. We'll say whether we think it fits or doesn't fit with a thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay, often bullies or threatens or intimidates others. I think this was.
I mean, usually, sometimes you got the often you have the one nice player in the party who keeps them from murdering children.
Yeah,
and
that's
keeps
true.
them on more of a crooked and narrow as opposed to straight and narrow.
So we'll maybe count that as half.
Half the time.
Okay. Often initiates physical fights.
Initiative is literally something that most people care about more than the rest of the game. So.
Right. Has used a weapon that can cause serious or physical harm to others.
Now, this one's a little harder because in modern day, we don't carry around weapons as often. And in D&D, every third person has a sword or an axe or something. So, but still, it fits everyone.
And I think throughout the series, we may have cake and eat it too. So, yeah. 4 has been physically cruel to people. 5 has been physically cruel to animals. I think
most people are not physically cruel to animals, even in D&D, because then like the DM and the other players are going to kill you. Oh, you'll get the answer over my dead body, and the necromancer just kills the guy and then brings him back to life and says, "All right, now that you're dead, tell us where the gold is."
Been through that. Okay, has stolen while confronting a victim. I would definitely consider looting to fit this criteria.
And also, like, how many times is like one player, just having a conversation? Oh yeah, I'm gonna ask him directions, and the rogue is like, I rolled a 23 on my stealth check to steal, and then it's sleight of hand. Roll again. Ooh, natural 1.
Yeah.
Next,
has deliberately engaged in fire setting with the intention of causing serious damage.
Looking at you, Caleb Widogast.
This isn't just how to cast fireball. I don't know what is. And if fireball's not your forte, has deliberately destroyed others' property other than by setting fire.
Fireball's just normally so available.
Yeah.
I feel like it's normally what gets used, but I'd love to see someone do a whole game where fire magic doesn't even exist as like a usable magic source.
Yeah,
that'd be fun. I want to see what you people come up with.
Has stolen items of non-trivial value without confronting a victim. Shoplifting, but without breaking and entering. Maybe even forgery.
Yeah. Yep. Stealing mail.
Oh, yeah. Federal offense.
Yeah, federal offense for sure.
Even in the D&D world, that's having the cake and eating it too. Often stays out at night despite parental prohibitions, beginning before the age of 13. Depends on your backstory. Has run away from home overnight at least twice while living in the parental or parental surrogate home.
Well, how else are you going to get pulled into the Feywild and obtain your magical sword?
True.
At the age of 16.
True.
I mean, how else?
Is often truant from school beginning before the age of 13. How many of your D&D characters have in their backstory that they went to school?
I know. I think of like 2 in my entire history of D&D. Someone's like, well, I graduated, elementary school. Like I worked in the fields and then a demon ate my dad. And now here I am. Next.
Yeah. Okay. So now here comes some of the differentials between this diagnosis. So it could either be childhood onset, adolescent onset, or unspecified onset, which is essentially just like we don't know, or adult. The next part of this one, and this is why I think conduct disorder might be a little bit more fun to play with, because you have some more changes.
Some more give. Yeah. Okay.
So one option is with limited prosocial emotions. To qualify for the specifier, an individual must have displayed at least 2 of the following characteristics persistently over at least 12 months and in multiple relationship settings. Okay. So lack of remorse or guilt.
That's many, if not most, D&D characters.
Callous lack of empathy. The person appears more concerned about the effects of his or her actions on himself or herself rather than their effects on others, even when they would result in substantial harm to others.
Well, why as a player would you care when the outcome is just a game,
Yep.
So
there's 2 already. We've already got that one. Okay, and then we have to choose whether it would be mild, moderate, or severe. So mild would be there are a few conduct disorder symptoms above what's required to make the diagnosis. Moderate is there's a number of them. And then severe is many conduct problems in excess to those required for making the diagnosis are present, which, let's check our notes here. We need 3, right?
Right. I think we got 1.
Let's say 1, 2.
9 to 12, it looks like.
So that's like 3 or 4 times what you need.
Yeah. So severe.
One aspect of the antisocial personality disorder is that they may often find that ordinary work is beneath them, or lack realistic concern about their problems or their future, may be excessively opinionated, self-assured, and cocky.
Again, most.
Yeah.
Most. I kind of like this. 1 year population prevalence estimates a range from 2 to more than 10%, with a median for 4%, which means about 4% of people have this in general. And it may differ across different races and ethnicities. And I like thinking about how there's probably less high elves that have conduct disorder, and there's probably more goblins. But is it conduct disorder because all goblins are that way? Who is deciding what's breaking the line? Where's that line? And there's not really other adventuring parties in your game of D&D. You usually aren't like one of 7 adventuring parties at a bar and you're all fighting, over who gets to go slay the dragon. That's not what happens. So 2%, your party, are the ones that have it. Most other people do not.
And I think you bring up a really excellent point that both of these diagnoses are pretty set within the laws of the land. Mm-hmm. And so for me to be antisocial in this setting may look very different than antisocial in a different setting. So if we go into the fantasy world, Neverwinter may have a different set of laws and expectations for their social contract than we would have in Colorado. And so that interferes with the diagnosis, because if you're not going to get arrested for stealing in Neverwinter, but you would get arrested for that in Colorado, you may fit better with antisocial in Colorado than you would in Neverwinter.
So a challenge for you DMs, pick a country, in this world, this realm, this plane of existence, take their laws, their rules, and set them in your D&D campaign, in a new campaign or a one-shot, and say, like, have intense, quick responses from teleporting police officers, city guards, have like brothels be illegal. You can't drink except in a place where it's legal to drink, like a house or a bar. Make it so not D&D and challenge your players to play to the world in their extremes and see how far it goes. And then let us know. Here's my question. Could I figure out what my character has by going through and counting the ones that I don't have? So if I go through the list and I say there's 3 in this list of 12, that's 25%. Or there's 2 in this in these 8, which is 25%. So like, okay, because I have more that I don't have, does that mean I'm more likely the other one?
I think that's a great question.
Okay.
And the way that I would do it, especially since we're not doing this in a mental health setting, we're doing this in a fun D&D setting.
Yeah. Also, I want to see a psychologist who like has consultation with demons and dark powers and stuff. Someone make that a character, please.
That would be awesome. Okay, so on that point of choosing between antisocial and conduct disorder, I would go through the rest of the DSM section on these diagnoses and determine by the characteristics of that diagnosis which one you want to follow.
Okay, so I can plan it out because I'm not diagnosing because it's not a real person. I'm more choosing the direction. I like that. All right.
Yep.
Okay.
So like, we'll get into some things in our barbarian episode that talks about how conduct disorder is definitely a better fit for a lot of reasons than the antisocial. But I think if we were to look at things and just talk about like, so one of the big differences between antisocial and conduct disorder is maybe the antisocial isn't as aggressive. And so maybe your rogue is more antisocial because they're not necessarily blowing up houses, but your wizard is casting fireball all the time.
And your barbarian is chopping horse carts to pieces.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would kind of tell it. And
you could even make an argument that, are you a melee combat or are you a magic combat? And basically you're more likely to be aggressive if you're melee and more likely to be conduct if you're magic. Maybe.
But
that works for
I
you.
think this is a fun concept
No, I
of the
love
D&D world of let's look at a real world mental health disorder and something that we would say, because ultimately what it comes down to with a personality disorder, it is just a personality in its most extreme way. Because we all have traits of personality disorders. We all have certain aspects that when we look at our lives and take stock of it, we have some closeness and similarities to narcissistic or antisocial or conduct disorder. There are parts of us.
to rage, you know?
Yeah, definitely. What makes it an issue is when it's so extreme, like in these diagnoses. And I think especially with fantasy.
Yeah. The extreme is why we're there.
Right.
You're not playing D&D. You're not playing, barmaids and inns.
Wine stocks.
Sellers. Yeah. You're not playing that. You're playing Dungeons and Dragons. You're looking for the extreme. That's why you play it. That's why we think that dragons probably play, offices and clerks. On the weekends in their mythical worlds.
They want escapism from their fantasy.
From their adventures. Yeah. They just want the normal.
And so I think being able to look at it that way and even maybe take some of the things that you notice in yourself that if you took it to an extreme, it would be problematic in the real world and apply that to your character, there may be an aspect of more escapism because now you're able to tell everybody how you actually feel.
Yeah. It gives you a platform to discuss it without actually ever having to discuss it. And one thing I like the idea of is looking in at yourself and saying like, wow, I have a rage issue, and then playing a barbarian and never raging and trying to go completely against the grain of a class and what it's supposed to do and see how you can do.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Now, this does perpetuate the idea that the DM becomes the accidental therapist of their group. However,
if it's accidental, you might as well have science behind it. The only difference between screwing around and science is writing things down. So,
it's so true.
That's Mythbusters. It's Jamie.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great
It's a
quote.
great quote. Love it.
We'd also like to hear any thoughts that you have about what we've talked about today. Do you think that we're right? Do you think we're wrong? Do you think that we're morally horrible human beings for talking about this?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'd love to hear all of it.
We'd love to know. We'll catch you next time.